Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for watching The Object of the Game. For Coach Chuck Kyle, I'm Maureen Kyle, and this is a show where we're talking about all of the life lessons that people have learned in sports. We've had an incredible list of guests over the past several months. We've had former professional players. We have people who are just really professionally well-rounded when it comes to where they are in sports, where they are in business, and they've shared what they've learned through their past. And we want to recap some of those moments that you may have missed. There have been some parts of interviews that I know we've clipped, we've shared on social, but in case you missed it, you're going to want to see these. We're going to take you through some of those interviews in just a minute, but we want to thank our sponsor first and foremost, Infinity of Beechwood and Akron. Dominate your daily drive with the completely reimagined, entirely redesigned Infinity QX80. The 2025 QX80 has earned the IIHS top safety pick for its structural integrity, advanced safety technology. This is luxury, capability, and expert guidance await at Infinity of Beechwood and Infinity of Akron. This is luxury redefined. Thank you so much for sponsoring the show. Now, Dad, these are a lot of people that we've interviewed over the past several months that are close friends of yours. But one of my favorite, if anybody ever asks me, hey, which one is one of your favorites? I loved getting to know Bill Curry.
Bill is just what you see on the show is Bill Curry.
Yeah.
I go back to I was a young coach, and he was I think at that time coaching at Georgia Tech, his alma mater, and he came to Ohio State's football clinic, and he gives a presentation, but he's there you are, he's talking with everybody and just so down to earth, and at that point I didn't even realize all the experiences he had. I knew he played for the Packers and a little bit, and of course with the Colts. But when he writes this book and when he shares it, it's an amazing story of what he has taken it into a life lesson that is really good, really important.
Yeah. You have an excerpt of his book, and I feel like it leads right into the part of the show that we're going to be playing for you. But if you want to read this piece, because I think you even read it later in the episode.
I did. I think I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
You'll want to see the entire episode, but if you share this.
So if you didn't see that one, this is like
you're going to want to
getting
see it
you
again
interested
anyway.
in it, because I imagine I'm used to television shows that each week you watch. This is so different because maybe hey, I've seen people come up to me and go, hey, I've seen about 5 of those. Well, I got plenty more. You want to look at them, all right? So that's my point. And in reading this, the title of the book is 10 Men You Meet in the Huddle. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't seen this episode, after I read this, I bet you will want to see it. Okay, so this is towards the end of the book, and it's Bill kind of saying, he calls it a rite of passage. Okay, and this is beautiful. He said, when a team really comes together, it functions beyond the apparent sum of its component parts, and everyone learns unselfishness. When a team becomes great, it is because the people in the huddle refuse to let each other down. And when that develops, as it does each year in one place or another, at all levels, the fancy word is synergism. Call it what you will. All competitors love it and will sacrifice virtually anything to be a part of it. We go beyond ourselves because we love our teammates too much to let them down.
I love it. Yeah.
If that's not Bill Curry, I don't know what is right there. Right there.
Yeah. He's amazing. Take a listen to at least just part of our interview that we did with Bill Curry.
In reading your book, and again, the title of the book, 10 Men You Meet in the Huddle, very, very good read, very fun. But while I was reading that, this is so different nowadays because you were a junior and you got drafted in the, the
20th round.
20th round.
Wow.
It's 7 rounds now. So everybody put that in perspective. The 20th round as a future choice. Okay, now you had to, while we were off there, you did have a chance to explain. Could you explain what that really meant back then?
What I thought, my brother-in-law called me at 6 o'clock in the morning and said, "Hello, Green Bay Packer," and I hung up on him because the league was having a draft, but I didn't even know that the NFL had a draft. I was that clueless. And he called me back and he said, "You better get a newspaper. The Green Bay Packers have drafted you in the 20th round." I said, "The 20th? They got that many rounds? Good grief!" Well, sure enough, he was correct. And I was a 212-pound offensive center on an average Georgia Tech team. We were 7-3, and for the life of me, I couldn't understand why Vince Lombardi had drafted me. And Pat Pepler, his personnel man, loves to tell this story publicly. That late in the evening of the draft, Lombardi turned to Pat Pepler and said, "Pepler, it's 2 a.m. We've drafted 19 players. I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed. Do something humorous with the 20th selection." And he went out. So that's how I got drafted by the Green Bay Packers.
That is
wow.
incredible. I went to Fordham University, so Vince Lombardi is a big name, and I was around a lot of, Lombardi history.
The 7 blocks of granite.
7 blocks of granite.
Oh, yeah.
Fordham University.
Mhm.
He was one of them.
What was it like?
Right.
What was he like in person?
He was indomitable. You could not be in his presence without feeling the charisma and the power. If you crossed him in any way, you didn't have to be late. You just had to be later than 15 minutes before the meeting. If you were 5 minutes early, you were 10 minutes late. And you could do the interpolation for that pretty easily. That meant be there, be seated 5 minutes before the meetings. And his rages were phenomenal. They were terrifying. And at first I was afraid he was going to kill me. And then I was afraid he was going to pass out when he would go into those rages. Your religion, your family, and the Green Bay Packers. That's what you'll think of while you're here. Those priorities will be all you think of. Well, he was very serious about that. And plus he had great players. And plus he had his greatest asset. And he does not get credit for this, but he had many assets as a leader. First of all, real leaders take responsibility for everything. Vince Lombardi taught us that, and he made us learn that. You look around now at the people that pose as leaders, they're not really leaders at all. What he taught us, though, when we came under his jurisdiction, was that we were going to be responsible for our leadership, and we were going to blame nobody else, and we were going to look down our nose at nobody else. No racism. Other teams in the league at the time signed no African-American players and bragged about it. Coach Lombardi had 11 African-American players when I arrived at Green Bay, and it was a 40-man roster. And he would have had 40 African-American players because he didn't care what color your skin was, and he wouldn't tolerate racism or sexism or any other kind of prejudice. That was his greatest strong suit, and the team knew that. And here I was, a white boy from College Park, Georgia. I had never been in a huddle with an African-American person. Wow. And the great African-American leaders on that team, especially Willie Davis, took me aside, loved me, embraced me, and changed my life. And oh, by the way, nobody could beat us. They won 5 world championships in 7 years. That will never happen again.
That was seriously one of my favorite conversations that we've had. You can see the entire conversation with Bill Curry on Big Play YouTube, or just go to the app. All of the history is there. Coming up next, we talk to another legend, Carlos Baerga. He was so entertaining. You're going to want to stay tuned for this. Welcome back to The Object of the Game. A couple months ago, right before opening day, we had the chance to talk to another Cleveland legend, Carlos Baerga, who is part of the Big Play family. But this just seemed to naturally go next in our In Case You Missed It segment here, because Carlos talked about the 1995, then it was the Indians, now it's Guardians team, and how close they were with their teamwork and just the chemistry of the team.
Right. And just people my age certainly can reflect back to that and hope that 1995 occurs again.
Right.
Okay, because why? The stadium opens. It's new, right? And here comes this team, and I'm sure everybody involved there, from the owner all the way down, is hoping. I hope this is a good season. We have this brand new stadium. Well, oh my God! And they have this team that just, as we mentioned earlier with Bill Curry, just blended together, enjoyed being together, and worked together so easy. And Carlos just words it beautifully. You can see his enthusiasm.
Yeah.
You can see it. That those guys are friends for life, right? They get together. I know that. And just when you say any kind of team sport, and individuals have to do their job, but the teammates have your back. Yeah. And that's what you're hearing about. And that's the thing you remember the rest of your life.
Yeah. And just as a fan, I mean, growing up with that team, to hear Carlos talk about those guys and talk about them as friends, it's just so cool to hear. So watch our conversation with Carlos Baerga. Carlos, I don't think anybody who's a true Indians Guardians fan can sit down and ignore the team that you were on and what you guys brought to this city. It's one of those times in our baseball history that everyone will talk about for decades to come. And
you're gonna talk about the Indians? Let me
okay.
check.
All right.
Oh, sure, I have to put
There
it on.
it is. You gotta put it on.
That was a blessed team that we have.
You
Look
guys
at
were
that.
magical.
That-
it was just that's
That throws
incredible.
back the clock. You look like
Look
you're
at-
25 years old. Here we go.
Yes, man. It was an amazing time that I have. And I give thanks to, to the ownership, what they did. After my first 2 years in the big leagues, we lost 100 games and 105.
Oh, wow.
The people thought that was right away. We was really good. No, we went through a big thing at the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
And I had to give thanks to John Hart and Pires. They give you the opportunity to bring Kenny Lofton, to bring Omar Vizquel, to get call up Albert Bell, Jim
Right.
Tommy,
Right.
to bring all these new players to our team, and the development was unbelievable in the minor leagues because they bring Charles Nagy to our team together with myself and Sandy Alomar.
Right.
We came in from San Diego. You
Yes,
remember
you
that
did,
trade?
yeah.
Coach, you remember that trade?
Oh yeah. And that in history, that's a great trade for the
Yes.
for the
Yes.
Indians because we gave up a power hitter, but we got all-stars from it, and in a team group that you were a leader on that team. And the beautiful thing too, the new stadium. What timing? It's the new stadium, and that ballpark is still a great ballpark.
Right.
That is
Right.
they did it right there. They
Yeah.
did a great job at that ballpark. And it just, everything hit at almost at the same time. You guys were playing new ballpark. From that point on, you couldn't find a ticket. You couldn't, it was sold out every time.
455 days in a row, the
Look at that.
record in the big leagues. It was a special, and I remember that day. I remember that day in 1994, opening day. You remember that Bill Clinton was there
Yes.
throwing out the first pitch. Everything, it was kind of crazy. The ballpark was packed. Randy Johnson pitching against the Cleveland Indians. First game, he was throwing a no-hitter. Opening day, that he was going to become the second player in the history. You know who was the first one? Bob Feller.
Yes.
Bob
Yeah.
Feller was in the stadium that day.
Yes.
I came up on radio and say, "Hey, this guy's throwing a no-hitter in the seventh. What are you doing? He gonna break my record?"
Yes.
Wow. So it was an amazing day because the fans, they never left the ballpark. Sandy Alomar got the first base hit to right field. And then we played 12 innings, and Wayne Kirby came in.
Mhm.
Boom! Land
Bang,
drive to left field, and we win that game. And that was a day that we never gonna forget about because from that day on,
Right.
our team went to another place.
That couldn't have been. I don't think you could write a script
No.
that would
Yes.
be as perfect at the opening of that stadium, packed house, a dramatic game, going against one of the best pitchers in the history, major leagues. I mean, he was amazing. And here we pull it out in extra. That one, is memorable.
That year was just 140 games. We win 100 games. We lost 40. That was amazing. To put those kind of numbers, you know what it takes? Especially when you're playing in the big leagues, when you're playing the great teams, that our division was really good. Chicago White Sox, they played really good against us and stuff like that. So what we did was special, but it was a lot of movement from our organization where they bring Eddie Murray, they bring Dave Winfield, they bring Otto Hershiser, they bring Dennis Martinez. So they bring veteran players that they already play in the World Series. They already win championships. They already win, like 3,000 hits. They Winfield and Eddie Murray. So they was playing with us in the same team. We was a lot of young players, but a great talent. But when you put, when you pull veteran players with young players, it's something. It was really special that time in 1995.
You're showing you mentioned the word commitment before, and you're seeing, okay, how disappointing that strike was because you had it going, you made a commitment, right?
Yes.
Let's go. We're playing winter ball. Let's keep it going, and then a commitment from the organization. They bring in veterans like that, knowing this is the moment. Let's get it done. That's just history. That's history. What amazing
that was
thing.
special.
Yeah. You talk about, I think it's so endearing that you're giving so much credit to the fans too, and the energy that the fans brought to the team. Because I know everybody thinks that they were part of it. They feel like they were part of it. And it's so nice to hear you say that did make a difference in the momentum and what all of you were going through. But talk to me quickly before we take our next break about the chemistry, because you can have all the talent you want on a team.
Yes.
But if the chemistry is not there, the friendship and the trust and the camaraderie, if it's not there, you don't have a 1995 Indians team.
The chemistry was unbelievable. Kenny Lofton, he was in charge of the music of the clubhouse. I was the captain, but he was the one in charge on everything like that. And we have players that every time we step in the field, we wasn't cocky. We just believe in ourselves. Believe, and you know what? No matter if we are losing in the 8th or in the 9th, we was going to come back. And when we started winning games in the last inning, coming back from 4 runs, 5 runs, 6 runs, we say, wow, this is going to be special. So Jim Thome started hitting homers to win the game. Albert Bell started hitting homers. Eddie Murray, Paul Sorrento, and it get contentious. And it was very, very special. And then Omar making all those plays shortstop. We was turning double play. Our pitching staff went from this level to another level. And then we have Jose Mesa closing the game. Right. It was one of the most special teams, in the years that I played, that I never played with a team like that. That team was special. And I want to say something to the fans before we go to the playoff and to the World Series, because they need to know something. You know that team is going to be one of the best teams that played the game. That team in 1995 is going to have, when everything is over, in 10 years, in 10 more years, you're going to have at least 9 to 10 players in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Wow.
You only got 3. Dave Winfield, Eddie Murray, Jim Thome. Kenny Lofton is going to be a Hall of Fame. Sure. Omar Vizquera is going to be a Hall of Fame. Sure. Manny Ramirez is going to be a Hall of Fame. Dennis Martinez is going to be a Hall of Fame. Otto Hershiser is going to be a Hall of Fame. And maybe Sandy Alomar and maybe Carlos Baerga later on.
Yeah.
We'll vote for you.
Yeah.
Right here.
But at least you have 8 players that's going to be a Hall of Famers.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a bless. There's any team in baseball in 1 year playing together, they're going to have all those players in the Hall of Fame. Fans, you guys were blessed to watch that team play every day. Every day.
Carlos is he's so endearing. I could watch that episode over and over.
See, you got to take your daughters, and we got to get Carlos together in the backyard, and he'll coach them up.
Yeah.
They'll be going crazy with Carlos.
We're in Pee Wee softball season. I need some tips from Carlos anyway. Well, another team that had really great chemistry, even though it didn't end the way we wanted to, was our Cleveland Cavaliers. Coming up next, we go behind the scenes. We get an inside look at the team from play-by-play announcer John Michael. Thanks for watching The Object of the Game. We are recapping some of our best recent interviews. There were too many to choose from, but one of our guests, I really loved getting his insight just when the Cavs wrapped up the regular season, right before they went into the playoffs, which didn't work out the way we were hoping, but we had a chance to sit down one-on-one with play-by-play announcer John Michael, who gave us a lot of insight into not only the Cavs as a team, but what it takes to sit there and be the guy who's like the in-between between the team and the fans and capturing that energy. And Dad, that was the first time you really met him. I've known John a long time.
I watch and see him on television, and he does a wonderful job. And you know what we need, obviously, is we need the storyteller, right? We need the storyteller. I mean, you can see the action going on, but it's just the drama and the information that you get that makes it a better story. And what we needed to learn from him and our next guest that we'll be showing is the idea of their preparation gives us so much insight that it's just a better experience for us. We you know, you can buy a ticket and go and watch the game.
Yeah. Yes,
but we get so much more information and excitement with these people helping us along. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and
wonderful.
for him, he has to develop that relationship to be that storyteller. So he knows these guys on a much more personal level than probably you realize. And he goes into that during our whole entire segment. But watch a little clip of our conversation with John Michael. Would you say that this season has a different feeling than seasons past, or
it does?
Yeah.
I mean, again, winning 64 games has a little something to do with
Right.
that. But I mean, I'll let you know a little secret that they're always fun.
Yeah.
Even when we're winning 15, 20 games, those low moments, those low seasons, it's always fun. But man, it's when you have a season like this, you get on the plane and everybody's happy, right? Not the players, the staff, the coaches, everybody's happy. You're on the practice court and everybody's thrilled to be there. And that's not always the case. I mean, especially the dog days in the NBA are in February and March, and it's a real grind at that point. There aren't very many practices actually by the time you get to March, but everybody's thrilled to be able to get on the court and to keep on moving and to continue the momentum that they'd built really since the beginning of the season when they won their first 15 games. So there has been something special. It's felt that there's something special in the air here over the last couple of months.
did it start that way, or has it been growing?
I think it's been growing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, you get on a streak like this, and you're kind of waiting, like, at some point this has to go sideways, right? I mean, you don't.
Are they peaking?
They're
too
not
early?
going to.
Right.
They're not
They're
going
peaking
to.
too
They're
early.
not going to go on and actually win, 50, 60 games, and it just really never stopped.
Yeah.
You look at, some of the streaks. They had 3 streaks of 12 wins or more this season. If you have won 8-game winning streak during the course of a season, that's pretty special.
Yeah.
They had a 15, a 12, and a 16.
Yeah.
This
the
season.
NBA, they're all pros.
Yeah.
Right.
They're all good. You know,
Yeah.
And just the way they've been able to do it, the way they've won games at times this season, they've been overwhelming some really good teams this year, and just the way they were able to stick together and deal with a stretch in March that was wild.
Yeah.
They went from, I think it was February 22nd to, I believe, April 5th without playing consecutive games in the same city, which means that every home game in that stretch was won and out. And then
Wow.
back onto the road.
Wow.
So, I mean, again, this happens to all teams in the NBA. This is the way it works.
Yeah.
But they were able to handle it and still be able to come through it on the other side. And now they're ready. Again, they're completely healthy heading into the playoffs. And we're going to see what happens in round number
Young
1.
kids listen to that. Young kids listen to the teamwork,
Yeah.
the camaraderie thing,
Right.
and realize how that helps, that elevates your performance. That's what we're
No
hearing.
question,
That's what
yeah.
we're seeing. That's what you're hearing. And he's not just at the games. He's seeing him in practice doing this. Okay,
That's where it starts.
Kids,
Yeah.
listen to that.
Yeah, that's right. The coach is right. I mean, that's where it starts. That's where it all builds. I mean, we've seen this. We could see this coming since September. It's a little bit easier to say now that they've had so much success, and you can look back and say, oh, yeah, I mean, we could see that earlier. But just the way that they came together and the way they worked and the way that we mentioned it on the other side of the break, the sacrifice has been critical. It has been crucial. The sum of the parts, right? This is for a greater good. This isn't for us as individuals, and that's the way it's played out this season.
We're going to get into in a few minutes how you got into broadcasting and play-by-play, but I want to talk about like what you're doing right now and just describe the job, because I'm sure a lot of people out there are thinking, he has my dream job.
Yeah.
Like, so what does it entail?
So-
I mean, because we said, you go to practices. A lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah.
But what is like a day in the life? Like, what is it that you're doing?
Usually, we tend to say, rule of thumb, at least for me, is you prep 12 hours for a 2-hour game. That's in the middle of the
Wow.
season, right? That's once, the preseason is when you're prepping for months and months and months. So we're constantly reading, constantly updating. It's interesting because, once the game starts, you just don't know what's going to happen. So you prep as much as you can. You prep and you prepare and you get ready for, you try to be ready for every possible scenario, but you can't. At that point, you just have to trust yourself and trust that you've done the research, and there you go. But it's, obviously, it's a thrill. I've been blessed to be able to get here. If we're going to talk about it, it's not the most orthodox road to the broadcast booth, but
wait until you hear that.
but
Stay tuned for that one.
no, and it's been great. I mean, the Cavs organization, starting Dan Gilbert, chairman down. I mean, just everything has been run perfectly, beautifully. All you could ask for, you ask for something to be able to do your broadcast better, and you get it. And that's the way it should be, and that's the way this organization has handled it from day one. So I have nothing but good things to say about the Cavaliers organization.
So you're well researched, headed in, and when you're sitting at that table,
Yeah.
you've done 12 hours of research.
Mhm.
What is it like? Like, are you really like in that moment? Does it come naturally to just give that play-by-play? Is it a lot of thinking? Really, I don't know, because I always think like, gosh, oh my gosh, you have to like think about which number, because I'm, as a fan, like I'm like, which number was that, with the other team.
Yeah.
It's hard to watch all of the action and then spit it back out.
It's a great question, and I think it has to do with reps. I really do. I think that the more practice that you get, this is what I always say to young broadcasters, that you should always listen back to your games, always, and then critique them as hard as you can. I still do this every single day. I mean, again, this is my 14th year in the NBA, and I just critique the game, or game 82, right? And what I do is I write the things that I don't like on one side of the paper and the things that I like on the other side, and I usually have 4 pages of things I didn't like, and maybe one word that I like. But the more you study that, and the more you become accustomed to, okay, I didn't like this, I'd rather do it this way, the more you continue to critique yourself and then make yourself better in that next game, I think it becomes more natural. But
that's coaching football. Just the important, you play the game, and say the next day the team comes in. Watching the film is just like what you're talking
That's right.
about.
That's right. And it's tough. Sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes that's no fun. That's right.
Ugly film sometimes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's the kids going, "Oh, we played so well." And we did. Okay, now let's break this down a little bit.
That's right.
We played well. Well, wait a minute. Look at this. We're pretty lucky here.
right.
It's like what you say. You have to realize you haven't had the perfect performance yet.
That's
you know, and we haven't had the perfect game yet. And you're just. But there's always tinkering to do.
Yeah,
right?
I truly believe if you're not getting better, you're getting worse.
Yes.
I mean that. And at any stage of your career, I truly believe that. So, and I talk to young broadcasters. You can get done with the game and drive home and say, I killed that game, and listen back and be like, you know what?
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't kill that
Right.
game. Or you could, you can tell the youngsters who don't review because they might have a phrase that they repeat over and over that's irritating to the viewer, irritating to the listener, and you don't know you're doing that, and you never would
Right.
if you didn't review. But the second you review, you say, oh my gosh, I'm saying this way too many times, and let's clean that up for the next game. So
All I can think of is that boom goes the dynamite. Everybody knows that video of the kid in college that just kept relying on that. Everybody has that word. So being with the team, though, is part of the job. So
Right.
are you getting to know these players individually? Is that part of the job, or is that one of the perks that you get to interact?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's part of the job only because you have to be able to convey their story to the viewer.
Mhm.
I think that's something you have to do, right? To be able to. So many of these guys have wonderful stories. This Cavs roster, by the way, has a load of underdog stories, guys that weren't highly regarded necessarily out of high school, some even out of college, that have made their way to the NBA level and are now excelling. So to be able to tell those stories in a passionate way, in a way that resonates with the viewer, you need to know these guys, right? And we do. We, like I said, we fly with all the Tristan Thompson. I've known him since he was drafted back in 2011. That was my first season when the Cavs picked Tristan 4th overall that year. Kyrie #1, Kyrie Irving #1, Tristan Thompson #4. So, it's been 14 years together with him of being in the practice facility and traveling and everything else. So yeah, you get to know these guys over the course, that span of time. But I think it's not just, fun to get to know these guys. It's more, from a business perspective too. You need to do that to be able to deliver the best product to your viewer.
And in case you missed that episode, to me, John is fascinating. I've known him, like I said, a long time because our kids have been growing up together. But when I mentioned to you that he left his job, his very high-paying job as an attorney, to take a chance on being a play-by-play announcer for minor league baseball, I knew you were impressed.
Yeah, what it is a great example of, and for people to just make sure you think this through, is your career. You got to love what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You got to love what you're doing. It's a life short. Love what you're doing, because there's a guy that things were rolling financially, whatever. He had no problems at all, but there was something that was not right, and he listened. And I don't want to, but people my age, how many times I've experienced where they fine, you could sit there and look at great success they had financially and everything, and they sit there and go, they can't wait till they retire. They hate what they're doing. They're counting it down to get it done, and it's just, how sad is that?
Yeah.
And he didn't have to do that,
Yeah.
did he? He didn't have to do that
Yeah.
because he took a chance, but it was an opportunity. As small as that opportunity was at the time,
Right.
truly, but it worked out.
Yeah. And taking advantage of those opportunities is something our next guest featured here is going to talk about. The incredibly hilarious John Fanta is going to talk about taking advantage of those opportunities and how that led to his success. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You are watching The Object of the Game, and we are recapping some of our best interviews. We couldn't even fit them all, but one of our recent interviews that really caught fire here and had a lot of views was with John Fanta, who you've known since he was a young teen.
Right.
And now he's play-by-play announcer for Big East and does a lot with NBC, CBS. You've probably seen him. A lot of energy, new father. But what I loved about him was throughout this whole entire interview and conversation, he talked about the power of saying yes.
Right.
And that's what really struck me with John.
Right. You hear people talk about risk management all the time. And what happens is the risk. And like you're saying, because of the risk, a lot of people go, no, thank you. I'm not going to do that. That's not, opportunity is, if opportunity is there, risk management means how do you handle the pressure of it? That's all. And you sit there and you see the story that John occurred where 5 minutes before production, the guy doing it walks out, and here's John, who knows nothing about soccer.
Yeah.
Nothing about soccer. If you haven't seen that one, please see it. He didn't even know anything about soccer, and suddenly, hey, can you do it? Can you do the announcing of it?
Yeah.
Now, how easy would it have been, like you said, to say yes? The risk management. I'm going to look like a fool. Yes, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And just let's go.
Yeah.
And don't worry about that. Have confidence.
Yeah.
You know?
And
That's the thing that's interesting about the story.
yeah.
Really.
And not only that, John is just really entertaining to watch. So take a look at our conversation with John Fanta.
What you decided, the way your route to what the college is, and I'd have to look to my left here and say the same thing for my daughter Maureen, okay, really did contribute to what you're experiencing now. And that's what you would hope as a parent, that it's, hey, have a good time at college, great, but let's get a vision of what you want to do. And I think your story is great.
Yeah. So, yeah. So
Well, I appreciate that. It's very humbling. It's very humbling, Coach, to hear that from you. And I think it really starts with this lesson. Availability is the best trait. Saying yes is the way that you want to go. I would tell any parent to tell their kid, say yes if given an opportunity, whether it's on a team, whether it's part of a group, whether it's a summer little job when they're in high school. I mean, I landscaped at St. Bernadette's when I was in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade. And Coach, you and I would see each other at 8 a.m. mass on Sunday mornings there.
That's
you
right.
would hit the 8 a.m.
That's right.
With your
Still
beautiful wife.
Yeah.
I think they check your ARP card when you walk in because it's just old people. There's no young person there at all.
Exactly. So for me, the story really begins on the broadcasting side of things at Ignatius and then at Seton Hall. And it's really the same story twice, but it illustrates that God has a plan, I think, for everybody. And that you've got to be where your feet are. I tell people, be great at where you are on the ladder, and the ladder will keep climbing. It will.
Nice.
So for me, yep.
I was just the Seton Hall. You know, a lot of people would go, Seton Hall. How did he? Why that? I mean, you were. I mean, Maureen went to Fordham. You applied there too. You know, that's a possibility. You know, and your dad made a great advice. He said, "Hey, if you're interested in this broadcast idea, New York, go to school there." I mean, so go ahead. I just want to. The way this ends up Seton Hall, I think is interesting. Go ahead.
Right. So the way it starts with high school before college is I was a cameraman on a junior varsity basketball game at Ignatius, JV game, and we had a varsity crew announcing the game. So this is the winter after my sophomore football season ends. So I'm in high school. My dad told me, you got to stay down at the school. Make yourself useful after school. Don't come home and play video games. You know, one, I'm paying tuition. Okay. Two, go ahead and maximize your experience there. So I was a cameraman. I wasn't on the air. They said, hey, this is how we're going to start you. At halftime of one of the games, one of the kids says, my heart's not in this anymore. I'm running for student senate president. I'm done. He gets up and walks out.
Oh, my.
So was our moderator going to say to us, hey, I need a student from the student section to now call the game? Or is he going to say, hey, that kid who said yes to being behind the scenes on the camera, I'm going to give him a shot. He gave me a shot. That's how it began.
Oh,
As for Seton Hall, Linda Gabor, legendary college counselor at St. Ignatius. I say legendary because I think she helped so many. The late, great Dale Gabor's wife. Linda said to me, she was my college counselor, and she had such an amazing way about her. We were looking at Fordham. We were looking at Syracuse. We were looking at St. John's, St. Bonaventure. And she said to me, you know, while you're out there looking at all these schools, you might want to take a look at this Seton Hill University. And I looked at it, I go, it was very Hollywood movie. Like I go, it says here Seton Hall. She goes, oh yeah, Seton Hall. Yeah. She goes, you should take a look at that. She goes, since you're out that way, they claim to have broadcasting. So I went to all these places. I was very close to going to Fordham, Maureen. I thought the world of the place. Yeah. What an amazing school. Arthur Avenue, the atmosphere, just a terrific place. They had football, they had basketball, they had a variety of sports. For me, I love that place. And at Seton Hall, when I went and visited, what I found right from the get-go was I knew at Fordham there was going to be an amazing pool of competition, of talent.
Right.
And when I got to Seton Hall, they said, look, we have Big East sports. So I'm like, okay, they have high major level sports.
Right.
We have Big East basketball. Oh, we play our tournament at Madison Square Garden. Well, growing up in Cleveland, you hear of Madison Square Garden, you're like, that's the grand.
That is
Mecca.
That is, you've made it. Yeah.
So that really, I remember talking with my parents, and they said, look, they've got an open door. They're telling you can get on the air as a freshman.
Oh, wow.
You can get on the air as a freshman. But opportunity knocks. But wait. When I met with, I remember saying to them, could I meet with the athletic director? And a lot of these schools, I said, could I meet with someone in the athletic department? And they said, sure, we'll take you to the athletic director's office. Now, no other place, very rare would a college offer up their AD to a prospective student. I mean, that's just unheard of. That's not normal. Yeah. But the AD's door was open, and he said to me, look, we can set you up here. We can get you started. We're willing to give opportunities. We're looking for students. Well, 2 weeks into the school year, my freshman year, I was the cameraman
No, here we go.
on a soccer game at Seton Hall.
Wow.
Now, because I called Ignatius football and we spread things out, I also didn't know a whole lot about soccer. I didn't call soccer at Ignatius. I'd never called a soccer game in my life. I actually helped with pregame, halftime, postgame, camera. I'd help out with that. So the game had been postponed a day due to really bad weather. And the next day came. The person that Seton Hall hired to call the game, they hired a professional. He couldn't make it. He had a car issue.
Oh, no.
They were going to tap into the audio feed of the student radio. The student radio station, WSOU. I'm an alum of WSOU. Loved it.
Yeah.
I had been in the training there. I wasn't calling games for them yet. Their crew was elsewhere. They were out on the road. You know, Maureen, things get shifted in the newsroom.
Yeah.
Now you've got some people filling in. You've got this happening. Right. Things are changing constantly. 5 minutes before the game kicks off, the head of the athletic communications department comes up to me and says, "Listen, I've heard about 10 minutes of your football tape. Could you call this soccer game? We have no one to call the game."
Oh, gosh.
Oh, my.
So that's why I say to parents and kids, what do you say to that?
Yeah.
I would have said no.
Right.
And then guess when they would have asked me next? Probably not for a while.
Right.
I looked at them, I said, yes, I'll do it.
In your mind, though, like a lot of kids, I mean, even adults would probably be like, well, I've never done that before. You know, that might have been the first thing out of their mouth. I don't know. I've never called soccer before.
Right.
I can try. Was there any hesitation in your mind? Like, what's going through your mind when it's like, okay, here's soccer, go call soccer?
I said to myself, well, you know, I guess you hope you don't screw this up. But then I said, there's no one else to call it. You're not competing with anyone right now. Just use your cadence that's gotten you this far. Be enthusiastic. The broadcast was for Seton Hall. So, okay, it was a scoreless draw. Nothing really happened in the match. But during the match, when the ball was in the midfield, like when if you watch a World Cup game, they give updates around what else is happening, either in soccer or in this case, I gave updates on what else was happening for Seton Hall Athletics.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
And when the game wrapped up, there was a guy by the name of Jimmy O'Donnell, who's worked at Seton Hall for close to 40 years. He was in the corner of the press box. And I said, thanks, everybody, for tuning in. The Pirates earn a draw. They'll be back in action next week. You've been watching Seton Hall Athletics on the Pirate Sports Network. Took the headset off, and all I heard was
Aww.
the sound of an applause. And he walked up to me and he said, when can you be back?
Aww.
And I looked at him and I said, whenever you need me.
John talks about in the full episode is you talk about risks. I mean, he had to go live in like a weird apartment situation with somebody he's never met and all of that. I mean, he's hilarious. You're going to want to watch the whole entire episode. From one Ignatius grad to the next, coming up after this break, we revisit the episode we had with Dave Ragone, who it was great to catch up with. He played quarterback for you and has been coaching in the NFL and has some great insight on what coaching really means. So when we come back, we're going to have more with Dave Ragone. Thanks for watching The Object of the Game. We are recapping some of our big interviews as of late. And another one that I feel like I keep referencing, especially as I'm going through youth sports world, is the conversation we had with Dave Ragone, who played in the NFL as a quarterback and is now coaching. And he just had a lot of great insight. And he talked about those relationships that he has formed.
Right. Here's a guy that was following the typical, okay, I'm very successful high school, college career, gets drafted very, very early. And one thing you find out about opportunities and you know, your mental approach to things is at that level, well, who drafted you? You know, is the draft situation good? And his was not really good. I mean, the show, if you don't understand it, watch the show and he'll explain. I mean, why was I drafted by those people? Mm-hmm. But be as it may, he loved the game, and he starts going into coaching. You know, it starts with just helping out with the colleges and going from there. Now, the reason I bring that up, and maybe how life works, sometimes it's nice that maybe some disappointment happens because he learned something from that. And what he learned is that, and he'll talk about that no matter what level you are, you can be with the little kids or you can be with the NFL guys.
Mm-hmm.
What really works is that you are what? That you are a transformational coach as opposed to a transactional coach. Basically, what you're saying is what? Transactional is really wins and losses. I'm on my career. I'm a coach. I'm on my career. I'm trying to climb up the ladder of success, and those guys better do well for me or screws up my career. That's transactional. And unfortunately, maybe even youth athletics is I'm worried about my record. So come on, kids, what are you doing out there? Hey, what's going on out there? Coach, if you don't know what's going on out there, why ask little kids?
Yeah.
Please stop that.
Yeah.
Do something like, hey, ground ball, you got to try to get that position where it's coming here. Okay, next time, get it. Got it, Billy. Okay. Well, maybe you're coaching the kid. Okay, just to give an example. But transformational that's what we're looking about. The people are getting better. And the nice thing about it with Dave here is you're hearing even young men that are professional appreciate that, that their coach is transformational, that they walk in to that room, the quarterback room or whatever, or they come to the sideline after a series and they sit down, and that coach, Dave Ragone in front of me, is trying to help me. He's trying to help me as a player. I'm gonna fight for this coach. I'm gonna give it all for this coach, and it happens even at the professional level.
Yeah, he was great. Take a look.
There is an adjustment period, like you said, from every level in which you decide to play at or is fortunate enough to be asked to play at. Playing at Ignatius definitely prepared me in a lot of ways that I didn't even realize until I got to college that I was already prepared for. First and foremost, the competition in which we played at that high school level was top notch, and we were able to play teams that weren't just from Ohio. We had opportunities to play teams from other states, and we also knew that when we had a chance to play these teams in Ohio or outside, that we were going to get their best shot. So our preparation level had to be at a certain level, and our ability to perform had to be at a certain level, because otherwise, we were going to get a team's best shots. Right. So I didn't realize that at the time. I thought it was what a cool opportunity to be the starting quarterback there, and get my senior year to do that. Here's the biggest thing I say to people, even talk to my own children about this, and I've got a son who's going to be potentially a starting quarterback in high school here pretty soon. Look, you go to high school, and I played at a really good one. We played against really good talent. But the reality is when I lined up against a defense, there's probably 2 to 3 kids that were going to play Division I when I lined up against them. Wow. When I got to college, when I was playing against different teams in college, there may be 2 or 3 guys on defense that we're going to line up and play at the NFL level. When you get to the NFL, they're all at the NFL level. Yeah. And so the reality is the jump is still jumps, but when you get here at this level, it's a traveling all-star team, where there might be a weak link in terms of how you may exploit a certain matchup, but that typically goes away after a play or two, because the adjustments made by the player and the coaches. In high school, you can exploit to a certain degree for a period of time. College the same way. Here, just that period in which that time allows is just not as long. And guys, look, you're playing the best of the best, and you're getting coaches who, their whole life is right now dedicated to getting players prepared and working on the X and O's. We don't have some of the other things that in high school that you have to deal with, in college you have to deal with. And I think that's what's, so great about those levels. Your impact at the NFL level, I do believe you can impact players. Like, the relationships can definitely be transformational and not transactional. Like, I really believe that, just being a part of it. I've got great relationships with players I've coached and been fortunate for that. But in high school, in college, you're dealing with kids at younger ages. And so there's other things that are going on in their life. In college, the first time they've been away from home, high school, especially at a school like Ignatius, first time they really probably had to compete to get a job to start. And obviously the things that go on required for school. And then, there's a social life aspect that goes on for teenagers. And that's why I have so much respect for the high school coaches that are able to deal with that, because really, you guys are our first really entry into what it's like to play football at a really high level. And if we're not taught the right way, then we probably don't move on. And I can say this, and I'm not even sure if I've ever shared with you, Coach, but the reason why I got into coaching, yes, I missed a lot of the football aspect of the X and O's and what that felt like. But it was because I was coached by really good coaches. And so I know, like, my experience with my coaches, starting from, even, before high school, but really high school with you, Coach, is one of the major reasons why I wanted to get in and try to impact lives. And I don't think for players who don't have that experience, they probably don't get into coaching because they don't have that same connection with what it's like to, feel an impact on your life in a positive way.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier two important words, the idea of transformational as opposed to transactional. I mean, transformational is you're making a difference in somebody's life. The game's going to be played and the ball bounces and and you do your best, because that part of it is a work ethic and just the find something you love and do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
You found something you love and you do it. And
right.
The nice thing about here's a pro coach, ladies and gentlemen, there's that is talking about how you're affecting those people's lives. Transactional. Hey, I can get a better contract if I have a better record this year, and I'm going to move on from here. I'm going to use it as a stepping stone because it's all about my career and everything. Well, that's transactional, and good luck. But what you were talking about, and it's amazingly rewarding to hear that you still look at this. And I know there's other coaches and pros do this because I talking to them, the idea of the transformational aspect. Here's a rookie coming in, and man, 5 or 6 years later, what a family man. I mean, it's hard, but he's become a really important, good person. That's you're still doing that, even though it's at that level. That's amazing.
And I would say this, and again, I know this is going to be the tribute podcast to Coach Kyle here, so bear with me.
You use the words.
But here's what I will say: like, you said something off air about, being able to get people on. 24-hour notice. It was a no-brainer for me, right? And here's the reason why: is because there's still things in my DNA that trace back to the things that I've learned through the 4 years I really spent there, but really my last year at Ignatius, in terms of how you lead people through tactics that aren't necessarily the intimidation tactics, with love, respect. And those, to me, I've been part of, in a former life of where you try to lead. I've seen people try to lead through intimidation, and knowing how effective you were as a leader, like, there's other ways to do it. And I've really chosen that other way. And it's a direct relationship impact because of how I was led by you.
Well, thank you. I come on. When I walk into the room and, 5'8" and 3/4 does not intimidate anyone.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think
that's
I can
giving
carry
yourself
that
probably
one,
3 more inches.
Yeah.
You're probably 5'5".
I would have been a little better with that
fine.
aspect. But I looked in the mirror going, now, wait a minute, let's talk.
I feel like I've quoted a lot of the interview with Dave when I've even been talking to other parents. And actually, something I'm going to take a moment here, because then even off camera, we were catching up about his own kids.
Right.
And he said something about youth sports that I keep quoting for all my friends. Whose kids are very successful in sports, he goes, if I had to drive longer than you'd be playing, we're not doing it. And that's Dave Ragone, a professional coach.
It's an interesting interview because as successful as he is or even was in college, he's got
He's
children
still
that are
parenting.
going to be maybe better athletes than he.
Yeah, you'll want to watch that interview. Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the lessons overall that we've learned from some of the guests. We'll talk about some of the guests we weren't able to feature within this episode when we come back. Welcome back. We have had just so many amazing guests who have given their insight here on the object of the game. We didn't have time to get to a recap of every single one, but I feel like all of them have intersected in some way. Wouldn't you agree that that some of their life experiences have really
just
popped?
The ones we've done so far in this. There's a common flow there. And I think if you look at the episodes, when you look at community building in Northeast Ohio, you've got Dave Gilbert, Ted Ginn, Jason Dunn, Jenner Tukancic, Rick DeRozier, where there's a lot going in Northeast Ohio, and look what those people have gone out of their way to contribute. That's the point, that for the greater good, and making Northeast Ohio a very special place, and you give them credit. Dr. Sam Minyar, there's an important part of the game up here, the mental experience that is hopefully a positive force for the young kids as they grow up, not something that they look back at and shudder. The idea of letting the kids sample. Don't make it pro career here at the age of 6, and they sample. They'll determine what they'll specialize in. That's the next step. And many of them will not get to that, where it's the investment part, where money is spent and all this, and the idea that it becomes an integral part of your life going on. Many people don't get to that stage, but they can enjoy and learn from sports. And we have Dr. Sam doing that. And then really the idea of guys that experienced opportunity and having the confidence within themselves to go ahead and take that opportunity. Because when you look at Charles Bentley and Dave Ford and Mike Toman, Brian Barron, so many things in their lives, they could have gone different directions, and somehow there were hurdles along the way, but they stayed true to it and took that opportunity. And certainly the idea that there's risk. There's risk, but the term risk management does not necessarily, again, have to do with don't do it, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean what risk management means. Handle it, channel it into a positive. And we've had some experiences of that. We've had examples of that. So hopefully those are things that the audience would appreciate.
Yeah. I also like how many people have talked about, and I'll use the word that you've listed here, determination. Because everybody we've talked to has had those moments of, and I don't want to say failure, but where things didn't work out the way they thought life was going to work out, or they had a setback in their sports career and they didn't just throw their hands up and give up. So I have liked that they've shared those stories and how that actually made them better, which you alluded to. But I think everybody always benefits from hearing those stories. And as a parent who is now guiding kids through youth sports, it's always a great reminder, like, hey, my kids are going to do better if they're not winning every single game.
Right.
If they are not blowing out the other team, 25-0 in whatever sport we're talking about, that's where they're going to get stronger and better and get that grit that will serve them. I don't think I'm going to have professional athletes. My own father and their grandfather can back us up here. But, hopefully they take that later into life. And that they're using these tools that everybody has to learn.
Right. I think we hope that this show shows that sports is fertile ground. If a kid goes on to be a professional athlete,
great.
Talent had something to do with that.
Right,
And
right.
let's admit that. Come on.
It's the DNA.
As much as we can train,
Yeah.
let's be honest. Talent does, God-given talent.
Yeah. Do we
But
have
it's fertile ground. They can learn so many things.
Do we have Pat hooked up here? Pat, you've been sitting here listening to all of these episodes. Is there anything that you've learned or has been hitting you when you see these guests come in?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's the perseverance. How many people talk about perseverance and facing adversity in their lives? I think the stories of people that's what makes them interesting, is hearing about not the times that they were, winning the championship. And we talked with John Michael. It's like the thing about that Cavs team, actually, as I'm wearing this shirt right now with Donovan Mitchell, it's how much they love each other and how much they bond with each other. And it's not the final result most of the time. Is that you actually, it's kind of more of like the journey, the proverbial journey that you're on to try to figure it out along the way. I thought that was kind of interesting because everyone's persevering the whole time. So
yeah.
So I'm going to ask something different today. I'm going to ask both you guys about pick out the theme. You may have already picked yours out. I don't know.
We'll let Pat go first, and
We're
Pat's got
gonna-
to keep us on time
We can
here,
do
too.
that because usually the guest, I send it to him a day before, 2 days
Yeah.
before. Go, all right, I don't want to know until the show.
It's
All
interesting.
right, Pat, you're up first.
I'll have to
What
pick one
theme
too,
hit ya?
because I know you sent it to her earlier, but there were so many that are repeat ones. It's funny because I would say there's probably 4 or 5 that get repeated for all of our guests.
Good.
I think perseverance and work ethic were kind of ones that stuck out to me because talking with John Fanta, we had basically the same upbringing. We were in one class behind each other in high school. It was like, be ready for your moment, and you don't have to be perfect in that moment. I think that's something that people forget about too. But as long as you have the work ethic to be there in that moment, I think that's what's really counts for you.
That's good.
That one,
Maureen's
I'm-
got to go in a minute.
You know what? I'm gonna go with Pat here because that's what stuck out to me with all these guests is the work ethic. Is that, and I think people forget this, that all of these people who made it to a professional level or a high level were never handed what they were given. And they weren't like handed a position on a team that they didn't deserve. They worked. This is years and years of work, but even how you just said when we were talking about John Michael, when you love something, it doesn't feel like work. So they had a love and a passion for whatever game they were playing or whatever they were doing, and it led them to success. But they showed up every day and they put in the effort, and that work ethic is what really brought them success.
Okay. Well, you've heard work ethic, right? We've
Yeah.
heard that a lot. We've heard
Yeah.
preparation a lot. Accountability, we've heard that one a little bit, right? Determination, mentioned. All right. So I asked you guys to come today prepared for that. I asked them to be the ones to pick out a thing.
All right, then what's our Shakespeare quote of the week?
Well, we're going to get
Need
to
it from
that, but I'm
Coach.
going to point one thing out, and then I'm going to go to it.
All right.
If it fits, I hope it fits what we're doing. Please notice that no one mentions winning or losing.
Yep.
Anybody notice that? It has not mentioned yet. We've done how many of these? It's 18, 19, I don't know how many.
So one thing too, Coach, and not to cut you off here, but so when we had Matt Waldeck on, we played the trailer for the object of the game. Were there any that stuck out to you of the object of the game means blank? So there was only one person I think in there who said winning. I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but Joe Thomas said that it's like the journey. Tony Romo said having fun. All these other people understand that that's not necessarily the object of the game. Were there any that stuck out to you?
Here's what I would say, first of all. If you just throw that at some people without really getting into the conversation, yeah, we're trying to win. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I'm a player, I'm a coach. Yeah, we're trying to win. Okay, well, let's take it a step further. Let's take it go a little bit more. And then they start realizing, well, there's more to this game. There's more to sports than that. And then they start talking really about it. And they, you know, most of them, as they started getting into it, talk about relationships. That, and you heard Carlos Baerga, and you know, I mean, they're still teammates. They're some of them are 60 or 50 years old, whatever they are. They're still teammates.
Yeah.
And that's what comes out of this, I think, more than anything.
Yeah.
And that should be for a kid. You know, that should be. I mean, one of the things I hope, I always tell the team, you know, hey, fellas, you know, 50 years from now when you guys have a reunion, you know, I don't think I'm going to make it there. But, you know, just realize you're still a team.
Yeah.
You're still a team. And they can't take that. And, you know, we started this show talking, you know, about Bill Curry. And Bill Curry talked, that's what the guys in the huddle, you know, they're still friends, right? They're still friends. So that's the important idea.
Yeah. All right.
a
Do we have
quote?
time for a quote? We'll
Absolutely.
fit it in there.
Okay, we got time for a quote. So I was looking for something that would pull all these people together, right? And what I found, it's from the play The Two Gentlemen of Verona, which is a comedy, and it's one of the shorter plays, and it's it's a love triangle. Typically, Shakespeare loves those to make somebody look like an idiot,
Yeah.
right? And so you laugh at them and whatever. But really, Act 1, Scene 3, early in the play, this is stated, and I think it fits all the people that we've had. I think it fits exactly what we were talking about just a few minutes ago. And here's what it is. Experience is by industry achieved and perfected by the swift course of time. You know, to become a veteran of whatever you do, you know what? It's hard work. It's your work ethic. When you say industry of people, that's your work ethic. And that work ethic is, you know, it's going to take time. And that's what I think we've heard from so many of our guests. They were young. They had their moments of disappointment and everything, but they were persistent. They kept with it. They had a work ethic, and they've made it somewhere. And we got to give them credit for that.
Yeah.
And we want them to tell their story to our audience, right? That story doesn't go out of style. It's a very important story.
And we've had so many great stories here on The Object of the Game. If you've missed any of the episodes, make sure you go back and watch all of the episodes. I guarantee you'll get some sort of life lesson out of each and every conversation. I want to thank you for watching. For Coach Chuck Kyle, I'm Maureen Kyle. Another big thank you to Infinity of Beechwood and Akron. Remember, download the Big Play app. That's where you're going to see all of the episodes all the time, or check us out on YouTube. We'll see you next time.